it's sometimes really difficult to know what to make, what to... Hello there. It's sometimes really difficult to know what to say on a video. You know, this sentence I just said then, I've just said 3 times and stopped the camera and started again, you know, and then it starts to create a kind of a pretentiousness about the performance. But the content and subject of what I want to put into the video, I don't want to say something wrong and have to edit it. I like to do these videos in one edit. So then I consider, what is it that I'm trying to say? Am I just making a video diary? Am I doing this for myself? Am I doing this for the subscribers? Or am I doing it for people who the subscribers can show it to? Is it an educational thing? Or is it like, you know, we can all agree on something and become stronger in one, you know? I think for the main thing for me is to get things off my chest, and things that are also relevant to you. You know, I don't want to moan about particular friends unless them friends have got something in common with a common problem in society. Over the years, you know, especially since the internet really arrived, but my whole life I've been looking at underground information, you could say. You know, information that's not spread in the mainstream news. Maybe because it's just too wacky, too weird, too strange, too unbelievable, maybe it's just no use. But I was always drawn towards this, you know, the unexplained mysteries of life, the unsolved problems. And so when the internet came, and I'd already seen that systems there was problems in systems and governments and nations and different things. It's apparent to us all, you know, even at a very early age, we know there's something not right about the world that we can all fix, that we can all change, you know, for the better, heal. And so when the internet arrived, you know, a lot of us noticed that others had noticed as well, that there's a lot of people out there that all see the same kind of weird things, that that it needs looking at, whatever it is, you know, the system, politics, banking, all of these things that run our lives. And so, like a lot of us, I spent a lot of time watching presentations, news reports, underground information on the internet, watching Alex Jones every day, all day, with this urgency. Come on now, we've got to fight this war against tyranny, you know, it's an infinite information war, and kind of getting really excited about the news, you know, in a bad way. And then going out to other people and saying, oh, don't you care about the world? Don't you care about the environment? Don't you care about politics? Don't you care about what the laws that control your lives, you know? And then seeing other presentations, like David Icke's presentation about the banking systems and the history of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Club of the 300 or whatever, and the Bilderberger Group and the Bilderberger Group. And we're thinking, wow, we're really starting to focus in on the problem now. You know, we've got somebody here from mainstream media, David Icke from British television, you know, a sports reporter, suddenly speaking out on these wacky things that we've all been interested in, and with a lot of truth in, and it's time to look at those things, be it false or real. I don't think any of us, like, you know, we said, okay, this is true and this is false, but I think we were happy that there was something just broke through the mainstream media. And then sitting down and thinking, you know, listening to stories about like how the Queen is supposed to be a lizard, and you know, and it just goes off into stupid realms where it all becomes divided again. You know, it's so non-credible that it just becomes a stupid conspiracy theory realm where we're all fighting, you know. I thought to myself, yeah, you know, what if the Queen is a lizard or whatever? You know, it's none of my business if she, you know, acts humane or whatever, if she speaks and things, you know. I think a lot of us weren't really bothered about like a lot of the information. We wanted the mainstream to crack. And I watched a lot of that information, and I watched a lot of the. Then came the free man on the land, the idea, with Rob Menard and other people. With this idea that if you hadn't consented to the laws of a government, of the statutes of a government, then the statutes don't apply to you. There's a certain logic there, but it's not quite that simple, otherwise everybody would just obviously, it's not about being lawless. And I thought these were good ideas, but something in the back of my mind said it just can't be so easy as these people are saying it. It can't be so simple as David Icke saying there's a moon matrix that's controlling our minds. It can't be so simple that what Alex Jones is saying is all happening and going to happen. I think a lot of us feel like that, and I watched and researched law and researched history and researched language and looked into all of these different things, different aspects. Is there such thing as legal lying, where you can write one thing and mean another, and it's legally then okay to lie in the media? All of these aspects mixed in. A lot of aspects that, I'm put myself through a massive amount of pressure to try and break down what all of these people are saying, and not just them. There's thousands of different ideas, millions of different ideas, and video makers and writers. And I'm just trying to find missing pieces, trying to find out where things are not quite as straight. Especially when you look at things in different countries and match them up and see there's an anomaly here and a correlation there. Ideas like the system is like satanic, and that corporations are somehow evil, and that all of these things, and I can't say whether these are true or false. It's not about true or falseness. For me, it's about, is it useful to my life? Is it within my reach? If I'm talking to somebody who's an official, like a policeman, a civil servant, who has a bureaucratic administrative position, do I want to go up to them and go, you are the devil? I don't do it. I want to treat them like a human being and try and work out why their paperwork applies to me, just the same as how my life applies to them. It's just that I don't have mine in paper because they're representing a bigger system. Anyway, I probably diverse it. The point of it is that the problems are only going to be solved by individuals, I feel, being stronger. And it doesn't mean everybody has to learn law, and it doesn't mean everybody has to learn politics and watch all these videos and that. Each person's got to do a different thing. Say Grandma, she's responsible for the apple pies, and we all want good apples. We don't want like gene manipulated Monsanto apples. We don't want like bleached white flour pastry. We don't want badly kept animals. There's a lot of things that we don't want about that apple pie. So if the one who's making the apple pie can look into what goes into an apple pie, it doesn't matter about politics. And if somebody else is working in computing to look into GNU systems, to Linux type systems, to Unix type systems, to be able to keep into open source, these two conversations about apple pie and computers, the two don't understand each other, but the two have got utmost importance. And if the apple pie makers make sure they get good apples and make good pies, and no animal or human suffers for that apple pie, and if we make computing systems that nobody suffers, and so on, all down into different areas. But there's a common theme running. The common theme is that we're like kind of blindly obedient to some authority that we imagine is over us. It's a misinterpretation of a world, the idea that politicians and government officials and everything are responsible for sorting out every mess. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not taking the blame off those people. I just think that it's very, very obvious that we have to be there for each other. We can't expect a bunch of paid people to be there for us, because this is what happens. It's like walking into a restaurant and the chef just cooks whatever he wants for you, and they deliver it, and it's prepaid. So what you end up with is you forget that you can actually order things from a menu, that you can actually go into that fast food restaurant, and if enough people went in and says, we order something different today, we order an absolutely gene manipulated free vegan whatever burger or whatever we was to order, and they didn't have it, we go to the manager and say, please note this complaint that we now in this fast food restaurant would all like healthy food. The restaurant has its function, we have our position. They're there to sell food and we're there to buy food. There's a transaction within the money as a power to say, if you don't come up with that what we want, then there's no transaction, simple as that. But it has to be done with clarity of mind and not seeing something as being evil, not walking into that restaurant and saying, you are the devil, you have been, feeding us something evil that keeps us in a trance. It's up to us to break that trance, to break that bubble, to understand that, there is a bubble of perception. You can only see as far as you can see. You can only hear as far as you can hear. I think you know all that anyway. I'm just... Yes. So I'm trying to fill in spaces, and I know them spaces are quite boring. I've been talking about Tolkien because I feel like there's a lot of wisdom been understood by other people and left in stories, things that we can understand that we won't find in the mainstream media and modern books and things. There's a lot of new information and people decoding a lot of things, so that, I don't want to distract anybody from keeping an open mind. It's just about what you fix yourself to, and it's so easy to just ride off on this idea that there's some kind of evil controlling us that we have to fight and attack, And if that was the case, then we have to kind of fight with love. The Beatles said it. All you need is love. Love is all you need. And if I was to bring all the pieces of all the things that I've ever said as pragmatic legal information or whatever, the thing that it would come together as would be love, because everywhere you look, it's the same theme in law, essentially. It's the one law, it's to love thy neighbour, really. And if we all start seeing everything as evil, where does that end? Where does the clarity start and say, oh, that was not evil? Is it good to presume something evil first and then later say sorry? I think it's much more powerful to look at things with a clarity, and others may think you're being gullible, or others think you maybe got an agenda, when in actual fact all you're just doing is trying to retain clarity. Because if something's out of reach, we can see what's happening in other nations on the national news, but we can do nothing about most of it. The masses, maybe individuals can do things, but en masse people don't do anything about national problems or international problems. They're just too big. And people are distracted from local problems in the local school, in the local town hall, in the local street and the local road, the local pub and the local shop. All of these things have disappeared from most places. Surely that's what the type of power and love that we want to assert is into our own local area, not forgetting the rest of the world, but dedicating half of our attention to our local space, to where our own feet are. We're not standing on children, that we're not pushing people away. A lot of this information that we're confronted with this information war, if it's appropriate language, this information war will cause separation between people, separation between man and woman, separation between friends, between parent and child. I think it's solvable. I don't see the end of the world. We're made to see a lot of doom and gloom, but I used to see things quite gloomy. I used to think that things were going to crash. So, and that wasn't that long ago, and some days I lose hope. But, and so I know from my older self, my younger self actually, I know from that there's a lot of confusion and frustration out there. People very scared at things that they hold to be real, or and I think, you know, we need to hold on to the fact that there's always hope, and there's actually things ain't so bad. Things are fixable. We have got a lot more power in our hand if we just, you know, raise our hand, stand up in you know, stand up to your right, and all that. So yeah, okay, I'll just leave it there. I'd like to continue, you know. I'd like to instead of breaking down the law, the Bible, and Tolkien and things like that. I'd like to continue with music. You know, the music industry, the entertainment industry, is one of the craziest industries, and it's fascinating. You know, the hidden messages in lyrics, promotion techniques, you know, stage personalities, all of this lot. It's quite fascinating. Anyway, I'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.